Hello everyone. Today was all right, I guess. Let's get into it. So, I remember I was woken up at like 8:30 by my mom. She was asking me about if I had any days off for the next few days because she wanted my help with a truck project. And I said that I do work from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. from today all the way to Friday next week. So if we did do that truck project where we'd carry things from a truck into the house, then we'd have to do it in the morning. So she was like, all right. And then she said she was going off to work, and I told her, have a great day at work. And then I went to the restroom, I got a drink of water, had a mild soreness about my throat, but luckily, after drinking 3 cups of water and then going back to sleep and then waking up again, that mild soreness was gone, thankfully, which is nice. Then I felt pretty gross, so I decided to go into the shower and cleanse. So, yeah, and the weird thing was I noticed that this part of my hand or arm, sorry, forearm kind of felt achy, and it was specifically the right part of my arm. Not exactly sure what that's about. I don't feel it now. The achiness went away, but it was there early in the morning as I was taking my shower, as I was like lifting and scrubbing. So not exactly sure what's going on, but I'm clean now. So that's what matters. And then when I was done with that, I was like, I'm kind of hungry and I want pancakes, eggs, and bacon. But I don't want to go out to get it because I want to save money. What should I do? And then I came up with the idea to make the pancakes at home instead. So I went in my room, I got my phone, and I decided to listen to something while I was making my breakfast because I knew it was going to be a very involved process, especially if I'm making pancakes from scratch. So I was like, what should I listen to? Well, I was into the whole Bionicle rabbit hole last night because that was like a franchise I grew up with and greatly enjoyed. And honestly, it's wild that there's still fans out there making new content and art and like fan animations based off of this IP that hasn't been around since like 2016. So I was like, I wonder why it hasn't made a big comeback, because if there was a time to make it have a comeback, it would probably be now. And then lo and behold, I was recommended this video on my YouTube feed by a channel called Duck Bricks, where he was talking about why Lego is very likely never to bring Bionicle back. And I thought, it's like 33 minutes. This will make the perfect thing to listen to while I make my highly involved breakfast. So I listened to it, and I was mixing everything together, following a recipe from a yellow booklet I got with my electric grill from a long time ago. And I was like, as I was making everything, I found out that apparently the major reasons were during the original run of Bionicle, Lego decided to just make completely new parts that they would print and only use once for like a particular set. And this era of Lego really only existed during the early to late 2000s. And apparently Lego realized it was much more financially viable to simply find like a more unified building method and simply just creating their armor all to look fairly similar to each other, and parts to look similar to each other, instead of having unique parts being printed for individual like sets. And so on top of that, apparently it's more expensive to maintain molding machines than it is to simply have them hang around for 2 or 3 years and then dump them and replace them with new molding machines that will be used for much better designed versions of like their toys. So that's one of the reasons why. And reason number 2 is that apparently when Bionicle came back during Generation 2, it did so poorly that they actually were planning on having the theme last for 3 years, like a little revival 3-year theme. But apparently the first year of the Bionicle G2 did so poorly that they decided to just cut it short by a year and only have it last 2 years instead. Which apparently, I think the problem Lego had with that, and even the guy mentioned this in the video, but I felt this before even listening to the video. But I think the big reason why, it was such a big failure had to do with the fact that a lot of the audiences who grew up with Bionicle during the time when G2 was released were currently in their late teens, early 20s. I was in my mid-teens still. I was 16 when the new Bionicle G2 came out. And I mean, during that time, either they didn't have jobs, or if they did have jobs, they were using those jobs to pay for their schooling. And they simply didn't have enough disposable income to buy plastic toys anymore. They were trying to buy, books and things to, further their education and their careers, adult stuff. So, and I think Lego was hoping that the fans of the original IP would come back in droves to, keep it alive. But another major problem is that they oversimplified the story. A thing that made Bionicle really interesting was it was a very mysterious, dark, somber, and evocative series, especially in its early days. It didn't really explain much about its world. It just it felt like when you watched something from Bionicle, you were watching an alien world being revealed to you, and there was absolutely no context. You were just kind of experiencing this alien life just happening before your very eyes, and you kind of had to come to your own conclusions to figure out what the heck was going on here. And you could make the argument that that could be very alienating to an audience, especially an audience of kids, but I think kids naturally are curious and want to figure crud out. And seeing something that looks so weird and alien makes you want to know more about it, And the problem with Lego is that they thought, oh no, we need to make this as accessible as possible. So let's make this so simple, even a dumb person could follow it. And that was their problem. They kind of babyified Bionicle. They made it too dumb. Too dumb. They just made it dumb. And they were saying, ooh, these are heroes. These are the villains, And for something that was so interesting and unique, because it was tribal robots slowly learning about their past and who they really were as the series went on, was such a cool mystery to follow. And just simplifying things for the sake of hoping no one gets left behind was kind of losing the point of what made it so special to begin with. And then, on top of that, they used a new building system for G2. And I remember when I saw these new versions of these Bionicle when I was 16, I was like, these don't look like the ones I grew up with. Why do they look so smooth and simplistic? They look more like Hero Factory with Bionicle label slapped on it, is what I thought. I mean, that was a bit harsh, because I did look at the more detailed designs, and I will admit that there was a lot of engineering genius that went behind those 2015 Bionicle sets that were like, oh, they actually did put a lot of effort to make this a really cool toy. But the problem was that it just didn't look Bionicle to me. And I was even though like I was 15 and or 16, you're like, ooh, you should be over that kitty stuff. Like, I'm pretty sure there were people who would say that and, they're go back into their corner and play with their Legos, and they're like in their mid-teens too. It's like, hey, let people like what they like, um, but anyways, yeah, this just didn't scratch that itch for me. Like, what I know about Bionicle is that you have like pistons, you have like ridges, you have all these like complex looking designs that look sort of steampunky, but also very, put together, but it's somehow still performing in a optimal way. Like, it just has this sort of like complex yet somehow simple aesthetic that made it really cool. And the problem was, I think they went too simple and they smoothed things out super hard. And it just ended up not looking like what I grew up with. And so that kind of wasn't really interesting to me. On top of that, they decided to put stickers on their armor, which made them look extremely tacky and not at all like, the complex three-dimensional molds that I enjoyed. That made them cool to collect, But I guess that would have meant they would have to bankrupt themselves by bringing back old molds and hoping that fans who didn't have disposable income yet could come in and save the day for Lego. But oh well. But yeah, so yeah, they didn't look like Bionicle. The story didn't have the complexity or intrigue or uniqueness of the original Bionicle, and the fan base was at an awkward state where they were just out of being a kid, but not fully into adulthood where they could start making enough income to have enough disposable income to support their silly hobbies, like, or not, okay, that's mean, to support their hobbies, like buying, uh, toys that they grew up with. So I think just if Lego had done something different, like if they waited a little bit longer, like maybe 2023 or 2024, and brought Bionicle back then, and maybe started it off with like a really cool serialized television show that maybe was a bit more like it respected like the intelligence of its audience while also offering exactly what made the franchise so cool and memorable to begin with. And the audience at that point would be old enough to have disposable income to participate financially in the franchise. But the series that they would be making would draw a lot of hype and excitement and interest around it. Then maybe the story could have been different. Maybe people would be like, oh, I remember Bionicle, I grew up with that. Ooh, this new series, oh, this series was awesome. Oh, I want to buy the toys again. Oh, there's toys? Yeah! Like, if they did that, where they waited until 2024, 2025, and they brought it back in a really intelligent way, then maybe Bionicle would honestly still be running right now in 2026, and people would be super duper hyped about it, But especially like the people who grew up with it, like me, like my generation. But they didn't do that. I think they brought it back too early, and when they did bring it back, they just didn't understand what made it work so well. And they also brought it back with like a visual design that just didn't look like classic Bionicle. So it all just kind of didn't, the stars didn't align, and it ultimately just looked disappointing for all parties. It wasn't nostalgic or financially feasible enough for old fans to support, and it wasn't cool and interesting and fresh and new enough for like the kid demographic to say, hey, buy me that, when instead like there were other IPs and things that were vying for their attention, like Ninjago and Star Wars and all that stuff. So yeah, It's kind of depressing too because apparently G2 did so bad that it damaged the brand severely for retailers because they couldn't, you know, get rid of these G2 figures. Like they just had a bunch in like, clearance sections, having difficulty getting rid of them because it just was an awkward time to release a new version of Bionicle. Um, but yeah, it just so now the brand has kind of been tainted and damaged because the last time they tried to bring it back, it did terribly financially, and so third-party retailers are probably disinterested and apprehensive about holding another Bionicle toy brand. When they look at the previous, they're like, "Oh yeah, that did awful. We're not carrying those." And they always look at the data, and you can't argue with data. So it just is a sucky situation all around. I just think Lego didn't really understand what they had, and they kind of muffled it up, and it ended up failing really poorly. Very depressing. I was a huge fan. If you don't know, over there, I actually decided to buy one of the older figures from, well, not older, but it was from 2008, later in the, or 2007 actually. I think its name was, oh man, I'm forgetting the name of it right now. But it's actually supposed to be the main villain of the series, Makuta, in disguise as like a patrol robot in the lore of the series, with like his hench dog by his side. And I got that like back in 2021 or two during the whole COVID thing, and I was like bored and I wanted something to do. It was like getting nostalgic about Bionicle, and I was like, I kind of want to get this figure, and I got it. And putting it together, it was like, ooh, this is exciting. Oh man, I love this. It's so nostalgic and cool to see this like cool looking robot figure being formed in front of me, and knowing that it's this important character and this that plays a role in the story. It's just everything about it just worked so well into this neat play box that made you just go, oh my gosh, this is awesome. But yeah, I kind of got off on a tangent there. I was talking about like why Lego's not bringing back, and that was one of the reasons why I just went into deep detail. Anyways, yeah. So mold's expensive. G2 failed. And if they did bring it back, that was the last reason Duck Bricks mentioned, then it would be extremely difficult to please all fans. They could bring it back as a minifig set and maybe it might do well. Like they could just have like, the same minifigs that you see with like Legos, but just have Bionicle sticker mold, plastered on their, brick bodies and specialized like mold masks and stuff. And, just create like minifig sets based in the Bionicle world. And maybe that might do well because people know that that's Lego and they'll support that probably, but it wouldn't please the die-hard fans or the fans who got into Bionicle in the first place, because they're like, this doesn't look like Bionicle. And then, like, apparently Lego is still doing buildable action figures to this day, but the buildable action figures they're doing just kind of look a bit chunky and blocky and even more simplistic than the CCBS character creature building system that they had implemented from like 2011 to 2018. Like this new buildable action figure somehow looks more brittle and uninteresting than their previous attempts. But apparently someone's buying them because they still sell those. So, I mean, technically they could do that. They also did a gift with purchase, like Toatahu and what was the other guy? The Chronicler Takua set. And I saw that and I was like, you know what? If Bionicle returned as like this, which they were basically like, they had a resemblance to Bionicle. They were made with like, brick parts, but the way they were designed was to kind of evoke the feeling of classic Bionicle. I wouldn't be mad about that because at the very least, it would still somewhat be kind of Bionicle-esque because they do look like the robot action figures, but they're just more blocky, a little more blocky. But they at least have the colors and the designs that kind of evoke those classic nostalgic feelings. So if they did bring it back like that, I mean, I wouldn't be mad, but I guess I still would be more prefer the classic mold and designs and stuff like that. But yeah, and then they did that silly little like Lego anniversary little minifig of Tahu that a bunch of fans online made like memes about, where he had this giant like you blowfish mouth, like it was pretty funny. Um, but anyways, yeah. So basically, his last point was, if they did bring it back, all the different ways that Legos kind of kept their buildable action figure line alive would, he argue, would really please all fans. Like all fans would have a difficult time like enjoying like anything Lego create with the Bionicle IP, because it just wouldn't look and feel like classic Bionicle. And so, yeah, that's pretty much where that story ends. And that's where Bionicle as something official from Lego ends. Luckily, though, there's still many awesome fan projects. There's this cool, like, stop motion animated fan project called, like, I think it's called Project Toa from Little Brotherhood Studios or something. And this guy has been, like, working on this, like, stop motion fan project, like, for, like, 10 years now or something like that. Like, the endurance and passion and like just commitment to bringing these like characters to life from the fans is just so inspiring to me, because it just shows like how deeply impactful the original run of Bionicle truly was. Like there was nothing else like it. It was a cool, unique world with like a unique approach to storytelling. I mean, yeah, we can look at the cynical way. At the end of the day, it was just a convoluted way to get kids to ask their parents to buy them the toys, and so we could make more money. And sure, whatever. But I think that theming and uh, story play a huge role in getting like a kid to care about that stuff. And I was a kid back then, and I care deeply about Bionicle because of like its theming and its story. And if Lego could just take fans who grew up with it, interview them, listen earnestly, understand exactly what made it so impactful, and then put people who genuinely understood what Bionicle was like in charge of like bringing it back, then I think that would be awesome. Like if I was in charge at Lego and I wanted to kind of softly bring Bionicle back into a new generation, I probably would do something like I'd first of all I'd get like a lot of talented story writers who are also huge Bionicle fans, and get them like in a writer's room, and I have them make a really awesome like TV show or a movie series. But let's be real, TV show, because I don't know if Bionicle has that big of a reach for like a movie, but for a show, perhaps like serialized new episode, keep you up to date with what's going on. And they kind of release the show as sort of a pilot for testing if there's still interest in the IP. If the show is good and it continues like sustaining a large audience who's like, oh, this is so cool, I want to see more, then maybe like they could like be like, huh, okay, well, it seems like this fan base is still alive and well and wants to buy some new toys from this line. So next steps, since third-party retailers are probably apprehensive about bringing Bionicle back, maybe Lego could do a direct-to-consumer approach at first, where they just create the toys and sell them directly to the fans through like online orders. And if that does really well, then maybe they could then show their sales data to third-party sellers, show, hey, this IP is back and it's hot again, and they're like, okay, I guess we'll carry it now. And then they could do that. So like an excellent serialized TV show, kind of reintroduce the toy line steadily in a way where like fans can directly support it, and then if that ends up proving to do well, bring it back to third-party retailers so Bionicle can truly have a grand return. I think that would probably be how I would do it. I mean, the bigger nerd and fan of me would want it to be a big movie, but part of me is like, does that really have that big of a reach? Like, where normies would go out of their way to be like, ooh, I'm going to see the Bionicle movie. It's like, saying that out loud sounds silly. Like, I mean, I would, especially if the movie looked really awesome and cool, like Dune. Like if it looked like a biomechanical like version of Dune, then I would totally be like, let's go Bionicle day one, woo IMAX. But I don't know if it really has that reach. But a show seems more plausible. Maybe a show, and if the show gets really big, then a movie. I don't know. Anyways, that's my long Bionicle rant. Then I randomly remembered there was this guy that made like a 16-hour long video about the Bionicle lore. His name is Ben Saint. And I was like, you know what? I remember, looking at Bionicle lore, and this was one of the videos recommended to me. And I was like, what the heck? A 16-hour long video about Bionicle lore? This is everything I could have ever wanted. But then I was like, yeah, that's kind of long. But then I was like, you know what? You only live once, and I'm a huge fan of this franchise, and I want to see someone's take on it and how they're able to compress the story down. And I was like, yeah, I'll look up this guy, Ben Saint, see what he can do. I clicked on his video, and I was very pleasantly surprised. I was listening to it while I was eating my breakfast, and I just was like, ooh, yeah, he's a very funny guy. The way he describes the story is just so casual, but also so endearing and so filled with heart and respect for this IP. Apparently, he mentioned early in the video that he was never a fan of the franchise, even though when it originally launched back in 2001, he would have been the perfect age to experience when it came out. But he was more interested in other things, never really did get hardcore into Bionicle. But he just randomly decided, I think he said, like, you know what, I'm just going to do this because I hear this weird toy line has the most complex story ever. And so he decided to do it. And he was like, yo, there's so many moving pieces. And then he goes through all of the different pieces of media and literature that he went through in order to have a fully comprehensive view of the story of Bionicle. And it's very, very funny. He like goes through all of like the scholastic books and all the like games and the and the movies and the comics. Like, yeah, he just goes all in for it, and he names them all by name just to prove that he really did do his homework. And yeah, I gotta respect that about the guy. He genuinely, cared enough about the project to go all in and do his research to give as fair of an assessment to this IP as possible. And for someone who never really got into Bionicle, who just decided to do this because he heard this was a very complex story, I gotta put my hats off to the guy. He did something that I don't know any other normal individual would put themselves through, but he was like, no, I'm gonna do this. And it's a very fun video. I've been watching it piecemeal throughout the day, and it's very enjoyable. Then my sister woke up. I greeted her, and we hung out a bit. We chatted. She made some of the pancakes from the batter that I made. Yeah. Then I remember I decided to go into my room, and I suddenly remembered, oh yeah, I need to make my Dune video. I'm reading 3 pages of Dune Messiah a day in preparation for the movie coming out. And I didn't want to have to worry about doing that late at night when I arrived home from work, when I would probably be very tired. So I decided to do it like in the mid-afternoon instead. So I read the whole story, I fixed up the audio, and then I exported the video. And now all I need to do is just put the video on my YouTube channel and we're good to go. So that's pretty awesome. Looking forward to that. Now, hold on one second. I want to plug in my this thing. This is what charges my microphone. So that way I don't have to worry about the microphone dying and then no audio being recorded. Oh yeah, that's something that I encountered where I remember I randomly had a thought, oh yeah, I uploaded a video, I think it was called Mario Party and Twin Peaks on my YouTube channel, where the audio cuts out like, I don't know, 5 minutes into the video and the rest is just me mouthing my words silently. And I thought, I do have access to that ChatGPT Soul Max program. I wonder if I sent a video of it, of the video to Soul, and then I asked it to read my lips and try to do its best to come up with like a script based on what I said. And I'm thinking that would be kind of an interesting thing to challenge to put it through. Kind of like if anyone out there has ever seen the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey, where HAL 9000 is reading the lips of his astronaut crew, realizing they're thinking about shutting HAL 9000 down, and so he decides to take preventative measures. I was like, I wonder if that technology is here today. So, I asked Chat Soul if that was possible, and it said, well, I could definitely try. I don't know if we're that far into technology, but I could analyze each individual frame by frame and do my best to parse what is being said with the your lips. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I won't. We'll see. It'd be a fun experiment for sure. Yeah, then I was like, okay, the video's good, but now I need to get ready for work. So I, put on my work clothes and I said goodbye to my sister and her family friend, told them I love them, and I grabbed everything I needed, went in my car, and I drove off to work. I didn't pack a lunch for me today because I just was so, I guess I just didn't. I don't really have a good reason for it. When I arrived at work, I greeted my coworkers. I was told by one of the managers that they had a gift for me as well as wanted me to take some assessments. I was like, all right. So I punched in. I asked them what's going on, and they brought me in, and they gave me this cool gift. It was a food container. It was like had a rubber like footing on it and like a glass, glass casing with a plastic clip-on lid on all four sides. Yeah, it was really cool. And it came in like a box, so very nice. And then I was asked to do the 3 assessments. One was work safety, one was heat illness safety, and one was workplace theft safety. So I did all those. I completed them. One of the coolest things as I was working on them was one of my coworkers was in the break room where I was taking the test, and they decided to make a cup of coffee for me and put it next to me and said, hey, here you go. It just felt like making this for you. And I said, oh, thank you. So yeah, that was a very nice gesture. I really do appreciate that. So yeah, I was drinking that coffee and reading the papers that I needed to read, digital papers, so I could be ready for those quizzes. And I passed all the quizzes with flying colors, so that's really great. Then after I was done, I went downstairs. I put on I was given my vest because one of my coworkers had to do sweeps because I'm normally doing sweeps all day, but because I was out doing the test for like 2 hours, you know, or like about not 2 hours, like an hour and a half, something like that. I had the vest given to me. I thanked them, and then I like bagged groceries. I took out the trash, and then it was time for lunch. So I punched out for lunch, and I decided, I don't know why, but I really want some tacos or burritos. So I went to a nearby restaurant that gave burritos, and I bought them, and it was really good. I really enjoyed it. I was continuing to listen to the Bionicle video while eating. It was a lot of fun. And then after that, I remember I went back to work, punched back in, took out the trashes, brought the bags up to the front, um, and filled each check stand with bags. I accidentally called one of my co-managers, one of my other coworkers' names, and they were like, "Oh, that's not my name." And I was like, "Oh, sorry." um, so that was a little mix-up. Um, and then after that, I cleared a lot. I brought in carts and signs. I wiped down check stands. My co-closer closed the produce blinds. And I finished final big order. I found out that my co-closer is actually going to be going to a new job soon, so that was oh, well, gonna miss you. I hope your new job works out well. And yeah, but I think they said they still got a few days left for their job at my current work. So there we go. Then I punched out. I grabbed my food container that I got, along with I did bring a notebook, but I didn't touch it or use it all today. So I brought those with me. I said goodbye to one of the pre-closers who used to be working in the store when it was daytime. And then I said goodbye to one of my co-managers, and I went out. I went in my car. I decided to continue listening to the Ben Saint Bionicle lore dump video. I drove off to home. When I arrived home, I greeted my mom. I showed her what I got from my job, and then we were like discussing maybe we could do like the truck thing tomorrow morning. And yeah, then she showed me like these new lights she got. I was like, oh, those are some cool lights. And our cat was back there, and the cat got scared of the lights. So poor cat. And yeah, then I remember saying goodnight, going into the kitchen, eating some cereal and a 2 espresso shots while continuing to watch the Bionicle Ben Saint video. And then I noticed my mom's phone was on a chair, and I asked her, "Hey, do you want me to give you your phone?" Or she said, "Just plug it in, so it's fully charged when I wake up." And I was like, "All right, good night, I love you." So I plugged in the phone, and then I was like, "Well, I better get ready for bed." So I took my vitamins, I brushed my teeth, and I sat here and decided to record my day today. This was a longer video than I was expecting, but when it comes to talking about things that I'm super passionate about or really enjoy, I end up rambling quite a lot. But anyways, thank you for watching. Appreciate it. And I will see you in the next one. Bye, everyone.